Right on. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm in the middle of the country, so it's great to meet you.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to delving into your life as an athlete, a veteran, speaker, all of the things that you do. But before we do, 4 years ago, we were wrapping our heads around this pandemic that was starting. How did you make it through the pandemic and how did it change you?
You know, so I had my children during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and fortunately, we we had a really we had a nice lot. We were in Baton Rouge at the time, and so my children could play. We had the perfect setup to be at home people. Um, but it changed me because at the time I was a small business owner. I owned an insurance agency. Customers walking in stopped, going out with friends stopped, just like everyone else. And I really think it more so catapulted m my athleticism and my physical ambitions because there wasn't anything else to do.
Yeah.
So it really reinvigorated that. So, de def definitely changed me, but I would also say it changed me against a lot of the technology that we have. I was not one of those that fell into, "Oh, we've used such and such technology, let's keep going." It's man, no, I miss the human interaction and everything. So, but yeah, that is it definitely hit me just like everyone else.
Well, that was the irony of it. We were so connected, but we still crave that old school aggro kind of way of communicating with each other as humans.
Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis here in 2024. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the
Okay.
kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I have fun.
There you go.
I have I found out what I want to do and I figured out how to monetize it and how to provide value to people. I serve other people and it's reciprocated by serving myself. So I figured out the best of both worlds. I get to go out and run. So coming from what I just told you, coming out of the military, I had a Fortune 500 job, owning my own business. I realized what I didn't want to do, and I realized through all that what I do want to do and what can provide value to people. And if you, I don't want to go to work every day not happy or not loving what I do. I saw a quote the other day that says, retirement is for people that hate their job.
Yeah.
And so I get to speak in front of people and motivate them to live better lives. I
Yeah.
get to go out and it may sound crazy and run for hours because that motivates people as well, but it also maintains my emotional stability. And
Yeah.
so that's the biggest thing. I figured out what I love doing and how I can provide value to other people, and it puts food on the table.
So what did you want to be in the third grade?
Man, what did I want to be in the third grade? I would probably say an engineer.
Okay.
I've I wanted to be, and I ended up being an engineer when I came back in as a military officer. I was an engineer officer, um, and so it kind of worked out for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's I wanted to build things.
So take me back to where you were born and raised and the seeds that were put into you that became the dream that you always wanted, living the life that you want to live, getting in the military, being an athlete, all of those elements. How did those brew and become you?
So that can be a long story. But so I was born in Birmingham, Alabama. My parents met in medical school, but my dad started his practice in a place called small town LaGrange, Georgia, and that's where I grew up. We moved there when I was probably a year and a half old. And so I lived in a fairly affluent family and had a great childhood, great parents. But I realized growing up, my dad wasn't like other fathers. Other dads were taking their sons to NFL games and college tailgates and drinking out of solo cups and all this. My parents didn't drink around me. My dad was gone when I woke up, gone when I went to bed, and I started to loathe them for it because I saw us as outliers. And what I realized through my story as I matured, I wanted to be an outlier because that's what makes you successful. But at the time, I started to what I call chasing air. So throughout high school, I saw what I thought the popular kids were doing, and I didn't have access to guns to go hunting or fishing or all this other stuff. What I could do was party, and I partied. I was a fighter and a drinker. I somehow got an academic scholarship to one of the six senior military colleges in the country, North Georgia, and that was the only school that my parents would let me go to, college, because they were like, you're gonna flunk out, you're gonna end up in jail, you need some structure. And after my first semester, I was majoring in physics and engineering. I got a 1.7 GPA, so I quit. I didn't know that a lot of kids with dual majors in physics and engineering have 1.7 GPAs their first semester. I don't think it would have mattered. But when I called my parents, I was like, "Hey, I'm coming home." They're like, "No, you're not. You're not coming home." I ended up homeless
Wow.
and sleeping in a tent by a creek in the North Georgia mountains in the winter. It was so cold, my heater froze in my tent, and I ended up finding a job working 12-hour days, 6 days a week for $22,000 a year.
Wow.
And so after about 6 weeks, 8 weeks of taking gas station sink showers and brushing my teeth in the creek, I was like, I've had enough of this. So I went to the recruiter, National Guard recruiter, and I said, "Hey, look, I want to go back to college. I want to get my degree, and I want to be an officer." Because I fell in love with that structure while I was there. I just needed a little bit more direction.
Yeah.
And so I called my dad and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to basic training in March." And he allowed me to come home under conditions. He said, "You will be home by 7, no drinking, no TV. You'll read at least a book a week, write a book report, at least 3 pages that I will grade, and you will work out and run every day. And you have to provide me with a weekly plan, and daily I will sign off on it." And he did. He held me to it. And it was very difficult at first because all my friends wanted me to go out and party, and I was like, "Man, I can't." After about a month, I loved it. I saw these physical gains. There's no way he could prepare me any better for that journey of going into basic training, and I flourished. I saw a goal. I wanted to be an officer. I saw that in line. These are the steps that I need to get there. And so indirectly, the man that I loathed because he was an outlier suddenly made me an outlier, and I and now he's my hero to this day. I still look up to him. But that's how I ended up in the military. I had no direction growing up, and I found it.
Yeah.
Found something that I was good at and that I had fun with. So yeah, that's what happened.
Well, and that was my next question, who your hero was, and you've made that pretty clear. So I'm curious, of all the people on the planet right now, if you could meet one fascinating person, someone interesting, and spend time with them, who would it be?
You know what? I might sound a little I would say right now Jason Coop is
Okay.
on my mind. Are you familiar with Jason?
No, uh-uh.
So Jason he's the head coach for Carmichael Training Systems.
Okay.
He's an ultra coach, endurance coach. And I started listening to his podcast, I know he has at least one book, but the man I mean his vernacular, his vocabulary, you can he is very well educated. I mean he says these words. I'm like, "Oh, I'm writing them down." I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta add that to my vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so just the way that he thinks, and the way that he asks questions and delves into things, you can see he's someone that is always looking to up level, always looking to better himself. And I would really just like to sit down with him, like, "Man, what makes you tick? How do you do this? What's your day to day like?" I love people like that. So a little bit of a long-winded question, but my person changes all the time because
Sure.
somebody pops up. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, who is that? I
Yeah.
wanna I wanna I wanna go meet that guy." Elon Musk was it for a while, regardless of what anyone thinks of Elon Musk. The guy has accomplished a lot. What
Yeah.
what what are you doing, man? Like, how did you so, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say
I dig
Jason
it.
Coop. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Obviously, you told me the beginnings of you being on a regiment and getting to a place that's better in your life, being an outlier. But right now, what is it that gets you out of bed? What is it that gets you motivated to do the work that you do and live the life that you want to live and evolve?
So, it's almost, it's almost a conundrum And what I mean by that is I I hold myself to a standard because now that I'm doing this, other people are counting on me to help motivate them. So it almost catapults me to say I have to continue doing this. But for me, what sent my rehabilitative journey on just a catapult to a positive in a positive manner was physical fitness. After I lost my arm, obviously there was some stuff before there that got me to this point. I ran this race, and a guy was like, "Man, you didn't do too poorly. Do you want to be on my triathlon team?" And I kind of bawled, it's like I'm sure I'll swim in circles,
Yeah,
and and but that decision was a defining moment in my life to join that team because it changed me to a growth mindset by doing things that I wasn't comfortable doing, but I continued to do them. And but it also made me realize if I can once I started getting good at it, because I kept getting in the pool, I kept riding, even though people were waiting on me at the stop sign, and it was embarrassing because I didn't used to be like that when I had two on. And so in doing that, I was like, if I can do this, why can't I go back in the army? And so now, um, in order just because there's a lot of trauma, anybody that suffers trauma, your emotional stability is going to be a lot more undulating than everyone else's just because when you suffer trauma, I mean, your chemical makeup almost changes. And so that's what I do to maintain my emotional stability. I have to have physical activity. And I think it's because during that initial traumatic period, those very ambitious physical targets are what helped me get on a path to positivity. And
yeah.
so now I maintain that. And so that's what gets me up. And then of course I have three beautiful children in a family. So I want to show up for them as well.
Sure. So you talked about getting on a regimen of reading a book a week. What was the book early on in your life that you read that was life-changing that you come back to that was seminal?
Undaunted Courage,
Okay.
Stephen Ambrose.
Okay.
Was it Stephen Ambrose? I can't remember, but Undaunted Courage. It's Lois and Clark, or Lewis and Clark. I can't remember. I always mess that up.
Yeah.
Expedition when Jefferson sent them out west to find the path to the Pacific,
Yeah.
and just so one, and I know a lot of people did this, but the journaling, no matter, it's kind of like Teddy Roosevelt's one of my heroes as well. No matter what the conditions were, they they sat down and they journaled every day. They were up against death almost all the time, going up against natives into territory they didn't know, but they kept pushing forward. And that's really the message that I try and convey is keep moving forward. You have to have an objective that you're moving towards. And those guys, I mean, when you talk about being resilient and persevere through just extreme conditions, they were in a frontier that had never been navigated before. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was one of the books that I read during that time that definitely had an impact.
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question. As a speaker, you give good anecdotes and stories out to people. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Man, the best advice I've ever gotten is never quit. Because most people, we call it deselection. When you find out something that you're passionate about, that it can provide value. A lot of people have that, but when it gets tough and they start thinking, I bit off more than I can chew, or maybe this isn't the right path. The difference in the winners and the quitters is just keep going,
Yeah.
keep moving forward. And that's I think my granddad was pretty huge on telling me that. He's no military guy. But that's the message, man. Don't quit. If you
Yeah.
believe in something, double down on it. Double
Yeah.
down on it. Burn the harbor.
I dig it. So of all of these things that you've done in your life, you've overcome a lot, you've accomplished a lot. What are you the proudest of?
I would say commissioning. After I lost my arm, going back in to the military. I was the first amputee to do that, and I've been trying to figure out how many more came behind me. Because at the time when I lost my arm, and they're like, "Here's a check," and that was it because you can't miss. you have to have all your appendages um to commission. People had lost limbs and gone back to their unit or gone back, let's say you're enlisted and they went back to being enlisted, but no one had ever, retired and then come back in through a completely different hierarchy. And so I'm proud of that because there were a lot of challenges. Many times we thought it wasn't going to happen. I got, I didn't find out until the day before because when you graduate with your bachelor's, you commission on the same day at the same time.
Yeah.
And my sergeant major called me the day before on Friday night. I think we commissioned on Saturday, and he said, "Hey, Rich, we got you, man. We made it." And there were times where they said, "Hey, look, we don't. This may not happen if you want to continue in ROTC. Obviously, we'd love to have you." Blah blah. And I kept going.
Yeah.
So I'm proud.
So at the end of the day, Rich, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Uh, I think that I'm a person who finds out, what the goals are, and I'm a light switch, sometimes to a fault. But I will give you the shirt off my back, if I can, and but I always try and move to an object. There's always something that I'm moving towards, otherwise I get lost,
Yeah,
and so I think that's how people will perceive me.
I dig it. So if anyone wants to reach out, learn more about you, hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
You go to richingram.com, and that's my website, and check me out, and I'd love to hear from you.
One stop shop. Rich, thank you, sir. Enjoy Austin. Thank you for your story, for your passion. Keep doing the good work, man.
All right, Joe, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, sir.
All right.